Good morning, everyone. This is John Anning, and I'm here today with Brian Ferguson. He's our ministerial candidate, and I wanted to let you know that Brian and I agreed that we would not go over the questions in advance. We never met each other until just now, and that makes it more fun, more exciting, and more real. So, Brian, welcome. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, I want to jump right in with a question, and that is when you're a congregant, when you're in a congregation, looking up at the chancel, watching a service with someone else being the minister, and just what moves you? I mean, what do you find you're looking for in a service when you're the congregant?
I think one of the things I'm looking for is that connection to the person speaking. I want to believe that they're authentic and they believe what they're saying. And they're trying to live into what they're saying. And so I'm always looking for that connection. I mean, there's always the one-liner that you maybe hear that maybe just reshapes your thinking, which is really positive. But I think it's more about the connection with the person, because if you don't believe the person means what they're saying, it almost doesn't matter what they're saying, because it's like, well, they could be saying anything. And so there's that kind of authenticity and that connection. And I usually remember the emotional connection to the person or the experience, it can sometimes be music, or it can sometimes be some other ritual, that you remember the experience. And I always like what Maya Angelou says, people will forget what you say, forget what you do, but they'll never forget how they made you feel. I think that's a really important element about the worship experience. You want people to leave with a feeling, perhaps a feeling of comfort, perhaps a feeling of challenge, or perhaps even a reshaping of their worldview, but really looking to kind of stimulate people emotionally, I think is what I look for in worship and what I try to do. That's not to say, and I think there's also the reframing, maybe just shifting the worldview or opening up new possibilities for exploration. I think that's always a fun part. And I think it's, I think we are in a spiritual journey and a spiritual exploration together. And I think just having a new direction to look at or a new framing of looking at the world can be really helpful.
So when you feel like your thought process on a topic has been shifted a little bit, and like you said, an emotional connection, is there anything to you when you think about an emotional connection with a minister or with a sermon or with a service? Are there any specific things that you just go, that usually helps or that usually doesn't help, or is it more just a feeling?
For me, story is a big part of it. I mean, I remember stories. I think humans are somewhat built that way, to remember stories, and stories that re-emphasize, stimulate a feeling or re-emphasize a point can be really important. So I remember stories. I mean, I probably shouldn't confess this, but I'm terrible at remembering people's names. I'm glad your name's up on the screen here, but I really remember stories, and I can remember people's stories about their life, and I think that's really helpful, because that sometimes tells you more about a person than a name necessarily. So I think story can be really helpful, and I think then there can be pieces of music, and I also think we don't do it a lot in worship, but I think smell can be very emotive. I mean, you think of your favorite dish that you like to eat, that stimulates a lot of emotions at the smell, and you might connect you back to your family or some special occasion. So I think there's a lot of difference with how you can stimulate senses, can stimulate feelings as well. So
yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. My next question is about a funny topic for Unitarians, which is responsibility, ministerial responsibility. And like when I think like you, when I read a little bit about you, you sort of gave up on the concept of religion, I think late in your teens. Is that?
That's correct, yeah.
Me too. I was never going to go to church until I came to UU. And so that was a 40-year gap. So when I hear things like governance, I always kind of shudder a little bit. But what I wanted to ask about is again about services, because this could be a touchy subject. Because let's just say the minister is ultimately responsible for the overall quality of the service.
Right.
That means sometimes you have to walk a line, because congregants like to participate. Right. There's a lot of us at UFRC that want to be part of things, that want to sing a song, want to do a reading. Sometimes you might have to walk a line between what you consider ultimate excellence versus ultimate inclusion. And just how do you look at, I know I'm just throwing that at you, but how do you feel about that when you think about that? Your responsibility to make it really good, maybe versus sometimes letting someone participate anyway.
Right. No, I'm actually a great believer. I'm not sure I would ever go for the word excellence, because that's assuming that what I do is excellent and what people do isn't. So, so I think that's a dangerous subject to get into.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, oh, thank you. But I mean, one of the things I've always encouraged, and I think we're going to be doing this hopefully at UUFRC, is I always invite my lay worship leaders to give a reflection in the same topic I'm doing. Because I like that idea, because I think part of Unitarian Universalism is getting more than one perspective in the same topic. I really don't believe I've got all the answers. I've got some questions maybe, but possibly don't have the answers. So I think it's nice, and especially, I recognize my identity as a straight white man, so I mean, it's really nice if you can get different perspectives from, people of color, from women, from the LGBTQ community. Fortunately, I bring a non-American perspective, so it's nice to have an American perspective there amongst the lay worship leaders. But just bringing a different ideas from different parts of the world. So I think having lay worship leaders contribute to that's very, very important. And I mean, what I always say to my lay worship leaders here is that I'll really edit for content unless I think it's offensive. What I try and do when I work with the lay worship leaders is help them express themselves better. Because sometimes when people write, they write for it to be read. But when you're doing worship, if you're writing for it to be spoken, and that's a different thing. And also, any of us who are familiar with our own stories, we can sometimes skip parts because we just know them so well in our mind. So really helping the lay worship leader, or worship associates, I think you call them at UUFRC, helping them, that part's missing. You're making a leap there that will get connected, and making sure that they don't, what we call in services, exit ramps and on ramps. We don't want to divert people away from the story so that they drift off thinking about, oh, did I leave the oven on or something? So you really want to make sure, and you need to give people on ramps, because people may go off and reflect, but you want to bring them back on. So really trying to craft something there, that people can connect to is important. So I mean, I think it's dangerous about, looking for excellence and perfection. I mean, I actually go for an informal reverence. That's what I like to do, because I think keeping something a little looser, I would use theological language, right? It allows the spirit to flow. You allow a little more creativity. I don't think you can nail down and clamp down creativity and thought. But you always want to make sure you keep it responsible and accountable to our values. But I don't think you want to nail things down too much. So I like to create space in worship, so there is that impromptu. I don't use a text when I preach as well. So even I'm not quite sure what I'm going to say. And so so that keeps it exciting and dangerous, a bit like this interview, John.
Well, you said a minute ago that you don't have all the answers, so I guess this interview is over.
Yeah, it's a great.
I'm just kidding.
I just wanted to set that as a goal at the beginning. So,
another touchy subject is that we all anticipate the arrival of a new minister, and I know that those first couple months can be a little bit tender. Because there are probably people that are thinking, I don't want anything to change. And there are people that are thinking, I want everything to change. And I think that there's a lot of hopes placed on a new minister, right? And so people are going to meet you. You're going to meet a lot of people. You're not going to remember their names. You're going to be at coffee hour going, dude.
Where's your name badge? Where's your name badge?
Yeah, name badge. But here's what I was going to get at seriously. If it's totally possible, it's probably inevitable that there will be times, especially at first, where someone feels maybe that you didn't hear them. Maybe you didn't understand what they were saying. Maybe they felt that you said no when they just wanted to be heard. So this is a touchy thing, but it's a real thing.
Yeah.
What would you want a congregant to do if they felt a grievance toward you, like a little hurt, like that they wanted to get over rather than throw gas on the fire? So what would you want them to do?
I'd want them to talk to me, let me know, just, because, we all make mistakes, but I think that's one of the really important things in a religious community, is to really model that good behavior of letting people know directly, like when you said this, it landed this way with me. I think that's such an important, communication strategy. And I realize, expectations are high for a new minister, and I always like to remind people that unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments. So, so that, you know, if you don't let me know what your expectations of me are, then it's not really fair to hold me to those expectations. So, no, let me know the expectations. And that's not to say I'll fulfill them, but I certainly want to know how I'm feeling, even if I'm not addressing how I'm feeling. So, and I think, but you know, I think communication is it, and I think sometimes we struggle with everyone, and sometimes people are more forward with ministers. Sometimes I think they're less forward with ministers, in letting people know when you've done something wrong. I think we have a feeling sometimes we are a little afraid in Unitarian Universalism of confrontation and conflict. And I think that's a natural part of a healthy relationship, that we let people know when they've upset us or when they've disappointed us. I think that's a healthy part of a relationship. And I think we sometimes we hold our relationships too loosely because we're frightened that if I bring this up, this might break our relationship. You know, and I can make this. I don't make many promises in life. I make this promise. If you give me feedback about something you're not happy with, it's not going to break the relationship. And I think that's
a really good way of putting it. I wrote down premeditated resentments. What was the first part of that?
No, unspoken assumptions are premeditated resentment.
Yeah, that is a great thought. And it's really a dangerous thing that a lot of us, if we're not aware of what we want and what we're hoping for, what we're thinking, then we're setting ourselves up. And it also means that a small slight could explode into a big resentment because you're carrying that. Like if we're getting to know each other, if I bring you an idea that I've been thinking about for months,
right,
and you're going, yeah, I don't see that, I'm not sure that would work. If I turn that into something because I've brought so much energy to it. So yeah. I think I really appreciate that, you know.
Well, I mean, I think the other thing I always remember is, you know, unless we speak things, then, you know, it just stays in our mind, and we can play that tape again and again and again. And we think we've talked to this person so many times about it. And we maybe brought it up once. We brought it up about 100 times inside our own mind, you know, and then we end up projecting onto people. And you were talking about, you know, there's a lot of hopes, but people want things to change and people don't want things to change. Well, I always think it's funny that people always want things to improve, but they don't want to change. And I think, you know, that there's a problem right there. You know, that if you want things to improve, each of us and the community is probably going to have to change. So,
yeah, all good points. And I'm going to move into our lightning round.
Okay.
Because we're pacing this really well. I appreciate it. And I want to talk about cultural diversity. Do you speak a foreign language other than Scottish?
English.
This is the part that I warned you about, where
I did mention German at high school, but to say I speak it would be a gross exaggeration. And I've done a little Spanish, but no, I really don't speak a foreign language.
And are we going to have haggis at coffee hour?
It's compulsory, yes.
Okay, good. It's always good to know.
I recommend deep frying it, like everything else. Deep frying improves everything.
And I could tell from looking at your Facebook page that you love this. You love Simple Minds. You love that band.
I do.
You're a super fan. What Simple Minds song would you most like to have sung at a church service?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I've got a great old song called "The American," which might be appropriate at a church service. Oh, that's a good one. "Alive and Kicking," I think, would be my song.
Okay, that's good.
"Alive and Kicking," because it's very uplifting and it's got an anthem quality to it. So.
Great. We, by the way, have a lot of lay musicians. We have a great choir and a great music director. We also have a program where we have drummers, bass players, guitar players. We tend to rock out a little bit. Just Excellent. Warning you if you want to withdraw your.
No, that's an enticement to me, actually.
Okay, good.
So thank you, John. It's another enticement.
What are you going to miss the most about Texas? By the time people see this, they'll know you're in Texas. So what will you miss about Texas?
We're in Austin, Texas, and I won't miss the summers. The temperatures are beautiful, but the people are really friendly. It's a really warm and friendly and hospitable environment. People, you know, are exceptionally friendly, and that's more similar to how I grew up in the west of Scotland. It's a very friendly place, so there's a lot of similarities, and even some of my friends who are Texans have been there. It's just the warmth of people. You know, you can get into conversations in the shops or the bus stop, and I really like that aspect, and partly because it reminds me of home, and partly it just feels very connecting. So.
Yeah. Now, I was told that cooking is a hobby of yours.
It's a passion, yes.
It's a passion. So I want to, it's a two-part question, kind of, what's your specialty and what time should I be there?
Well, we'll have to social distance, John, but yeah, if you can do that. I think 1,200 miles should cover it. I love Indian food. The reason I learned to cook was I was 16. I went with some friends into Glasgow, and they took me to an Indian restaurant. I never had Indian food, and I absolutely loved it. So I went home that night and asked my mum, I want to learn how to cook Indian food, and she'd never cooked it, but she found a recipe. So we ended up spending the night, the first night, cooking Indian food. So the first time I had Indian food, I had it twice in the one day. I cook a variety of Indian food. I cook a lot of seafood as well, and I like Cajun and Creole food as well. So I'll give you a choice, John, and then you can pick which ones you want. So.
You tend toward the spicy stuff.
I love sauces. You know, I mean,
yeah.
You know, I like stir fries. I like anything with sauce. And I think partly this is a rebellion against my dad, who didn't like sauce. He thought it ruined food. So this is I'm still acting out my teenage rebellion against my dad. So.
And finally, I want to ask you a political question. In Redwood City, our motto is climate best by government test. But can you really trust a government test?
Well, when something concludes the best of anything, I become skeptical. So I'm a little bit skeptical about that. Not that I'm knocking Redwood City as well. I mean, I think you know. I mean, government. It's almost an American pastime to criticize government. You know, and I come from a place. You know, I wouldn't have been able to go to college. You know, I was the first generation of my family to go to college without government help. I got all my fees and grants paid, you know, because of my family's income. And so, and a number of us were able to do that. I mean, I think, you know, like anything, governments can do some good things and they can do some not so good things. And the more and more we work and we pay attention and we work with government, we can help them do more good things. And there's many things I think government should be doing that they don't do, but I'm certainly a benefit. We had a national healthcare system in Britain. I went to a public university. I got grants to go there, and I think it can help with social mobility. And I think that can be a role for government. I think regulation can be good. Is it too much? Probably, but you know, I think it's, you know, there's a difference between good government and bad government, and so I don't have any strict dogma around government.
Yeah,
the role of religious communities and myself as a religious leader is to hold government accountable, especially to the least amongst us. There's a lot of people that are badly underserved in our society, and I know housing is a big thing in the Bay Area, and so I think there's things government can do to address some of those inequities. So I avoided that quite nicely, I thought.
That was beautiful. Yeah, that was great. And you already said you won't miss. I can tell you, it may not be the best climate, but it is better than Austin in the summer. Yeah. If you would like to take a minute, it's up to you. If there's anything you'd like to just say to the congregation here before we stop, this is your moment. If you just want to welcome yourself. You'll be being watched by 100 people sitting in the church. And so if there's anything you want to say, this is your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. Well, I'll probably be doing a welcoming video that they'll have already seen by now. But I just want to say, if you've got, you know, along the lines of what we talked about, if you've got any questions for me, let me know. I mean, if you have any doubt about whether the question's right or not, ask me it and I'll let you know. I mean, I really want to get to know you. Now, you may have told from this video that I'm a raging extrovert, but I actually, you know, want to get to know everyone. I want to get to know the extroverts, the introverts, those who are struggling, those who are new to the church, those who've been there. Come and talk to me. That's really important. It's a great opportunity. I mean, I'm really excited about coming to Redwood City. I love Northern California. You know, you probably have heard I lived in San Francisco for 16 years. So I'm really excited to, you know, come back to Northern California. My wife and I met in San Francisco, so we're really excited. But really, come get to know me. Let's talk to each other. Let's not have any secrets or gossip. Let's be open about the conversation. I promise to be as honest and as transparent as I can. But that goes two ways. So I look forward to getting to know everyone. I really look forward. And I'd like to thank you, John, for the opportunity to do this. I really appreciate it. So.
Yeah, well, thank you, Brian. It's great to meet you. I'm really glad we didn't over-prepare and we got a few laughs. So thank you. I'm going to let you end it because you're the recordist.
Okay.
And why don't you take a listen and see what you think? But if it's okay with you, it's okay with me, and we'll just send it over to the search committee.
Well, I want you to see me in all my raw glory for what it is. But thank you, John, and I'll stop the recording now. Take care. It's good to see you.
Yeah.